Amy Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very happy to rise this afternoon and take a call on this debate on what is technically the third reading of the Appropriations Bill and the second of the Imprest Supply Bill, but really, sir, I think is more broadly than that a good chance to have a bit of a health check on the company's economic performance and the economic position we find ourselves in. And I think actually, sir, that there is no more important time to do that given the situation that the world finds itself in. We have followed with sort of horrified attention the growing concerns in the EU for some months now. We have watched it spread from the disasters in Greece and Portugal, spreading now into very mainstream economies like Spain and Italy. And so anyone who watches these things and understands the economic situation, and I certainly don't claim by any stretch to be any sort of expert, but I know enough, sir, to be very concerned, as I know most thinking New Zealanders are, about the economic situation in the EU. And of course, more recently, sir, we have watched the old superpower America really teeter on the brink of complete collapse, and seeing them have their economy downgraded recently, and not only downgraded but put on further negative watch, tells us, sir, how important it is that we can present to the world a face of being a strong economy that has its books in orders, that has its debts under control, and that most importantly, sir, is being led by a government that knows how to run a strong economy and knows how important it is to keep the accounts in good order and keep us in good shape. And I think, sir, what we've seen over the three budgets delivered by the John Key-led government has been a story of returning this country to the strong position that it deserves to be in, putting us on the front foot, putting us in a position where we are economically competitive internationally, where the world and the lending markets know that we are a good bet. And I think actually all of New Zealand can reflect back with some pride on the fact that while we are by no means out of the woods and we have a difficult period still ahead of us, and I certainly don't want to diminish the reality of that, New Zealand is in fact in a very strong position right now, and compared to so much of the rest of the world, we are in a good position. We have a strong government, we have a government that knows how to manage the economy, and we have a government that has acted early, sir, from as soon as it was elected in 2008, to turn around the never-ending deficits bequeathed to us by the last government, to turn around the explosion of the bloated bureaucracy, and to instead turn our focus back to the productive sector of this economy, and saying, sir, that our job as government, first and foremost, is to make sure we keep our house in order. And if we can't control the 25% of the economy that is government, there is little hope of the rest of the country following suit. And I think we have done that. We've sent a very clear message that we're going to get government expenditure under control. We are not going to sit and preside over ever-growing government expenditure. And what was worse, sir, is that growing expenditure under the Labour government didn't deliver any better outcomes. Time and time again, we saw more and more money being thrown into the bottomless pit of bureaucracy with no improvement in the outcomes. And what have we had under the national government? We have had tight fiscal management. We have put pressure on the chief executives of the departments, and yet we have seen better outcomes. Tony Ryle stands up in this House day after day and reports on the fact that more New Zealanders are now getting elective surgery than ever before. More New Zealanders are getting access to more medicines than ever before. And we haven't done it by simply throwing more money at the problem and hoping it'll go away. We've done it by imposing some pretty tough requirements and making it very clear that our expectation is that the civil service will do more with taxpayers' money. They will do more with the money we take from hard-working New Zealanders, and recognising, sir, and acknowledging and thanking, frankly, the New Zealanders who go out to work every day and pay their taxes to enable that to happen. And I think, sir, controlling government expenditure has been a core part of what we're about. The other very important part, and if anyone doubts the importance of it, the recent events should certainly put them right, is presenting a credible picture of the control of national debt to the world. And so I do acknowledge that our net investment position is overwhelmingly, or in the large part, made up of private debt. But in fact, sir, the track we have now set New Zealand on with the government debt is something to be proud of. The fact that we are now going to see a core crown debt peak at no more than 30%, and that we are seeing a return to surplus in a little more than 3 years, is an absolute endorsement of the John Key-led government and the work that they have done to put our economic house in order. So we've controlled government expenditure. We've got our debt position under control. We've put ourselves in a position where the rest of the world can look at us and know that we are still a good bet. And if we need to borrow, they are certainly willing to lend to us. We're supporting the productive economy, sir, because national governments get it. We get that governments only have money if the productive sector is working, is growing and is paying its taxes, and our job is to support them in that. It's not to get in their way, it's not to put barriers up, it's not to smack down anyone who dares to be successful in this country. It's actually to say, good on you, thank you for being here, thank you for working hard. And that is part of the reform of our tax system, sir. The Minister talked in his contribution about the biggest reform of the tax system in 25 years that this government has overseen. Sir, that tax switch, despite what the previous speaker said, was tax neutral. It was broadly tax neutral, sir. The tax cuts across the board that now see over two-thirds of taxpayers paying no more than 17.5% income tax. Those, sir, funded the increase in GST. Now, Labor wants to talk time and again about these $1,000 tax cuts. $1,000 tax cuts they talk about. Sir, for the few people who get those, let's just reflect upon the fact that to have had a $1,000 a week tax cut, as Trevor Mallard goes on about ad nauseum, you must be paying more than $250,000 in tax every year after the tax cuts. After them. So those people that Trevor Mallard wants to harangue and bully and vilify are paying every single year $250,000 in tax, and income tax alone, to support the families in New Zealand that need it. And, sir, if we're going to vilify them and beat them up, as Trevor Mallard would have us do, I wouldn't blame them for saying, why would we stay? If he wants to scare away and beat the golden goose, good luck to him. But, Mr Mallard, who's going to pay for your welfare? Who's going to pay for your handouts? Who's going to pay for your excessive government spending, your lolly scrambles? So I say to Mr Mallard, every time that member wants to talk about $1,000 a week tax cuts, just bear in mind that the people that member refers to are paying now, after the tax changes, more than $250,000 in income tax every year to support this country. And frankly, sir, I'd rather they were doing it in our economy than anywhere around the world. I think it's also worth reflecting, when we talk about the tax system, on the fact that the lowest 43% of income earners in this country actually receive more in government transfers than they pay in income tax.
Absolutely.
How we give tax cuts to people who don't pay any income tax, who don't pay net income tax, how do you give a tax cut to someone who doesn't pay any net income tax? And in fact, you have to be earning on average more than $110,000 a year before the government actually starts to make a net buck off you. So that's fine, but don't... I won't accept a suggestion, sir, that we are not being fair. We are not being fair when you have to earn more than $110,000 before you actually start to contribute to the net welfare, the net performance of New Zealand. Sir, this government is controlling government expenditure. It has turned around our debt position. It is supporting the productive economy. It's reformed the tax system to be fair and to be aspirational. It's building world-leading infrastructure to support our economy. It's raising the skill levels across the board. It's investing in science and innovation. And it's doing all of this, sir, so that we can move New Zealand forward. We're not going to follow the Labor plan of taking New Zealand backwards into the dark ages of more tax, more debt, more spending. We're interested in moving this country forward, raising the outcomes for all New Zealanders, and that, sir, can only happen by fixing the economic mess that Labor left us. The three budgets that we have seen from Bill English and John Key are a step in that direction, and the fact, sir, that we are in such a strong position while the rest of the world struggles under this global period of turmoil is credit to the national-led government. It is credit to our economic management. It is why New Zealand is going to continue to support us, because it wants to see us take this country forward, and that, sir, is what we're planning to deliver.
Grant Robertson.
Speaker, the Appropriation